News of the day.
Mr. Zimmerman, have you made a decision as to whether or not you want to testify in this case?
With values that never die.
There are certainly a lot of controversies or scandals brewing right now when it comes to the Obama administration.
This is American Heartland with Dr. Grace.
Dealing with the federal government is not always high-tech, and it's not always user-friendly.
The stories that matter.
This is a massive escalation in the tension here in Egypt.
The issues that count.
I don't know why the media tries to make this into a sensation. We have never hidden the fact that we supply Syria with weapons.
This is American Heartland with Dr. Grace.
He's got the red, white, blue flying high on the farm. Semper Fi tattooed on his left.
Welcome to American Heartland. This is Dr. Grace, the editor of Politics and Culture at worldtribune.com. Thank you so much for joining us on this Saturday on WTSB. I'm in a fantastic mood, both for personal reasons and political reasons. Personal reasons, I just spent 5 lovely days with my best friend and her gorgeous little girl who came in from Rome, and I was able to show off our new life in a new state, and we had such a great time chatting about the past, chatting about the future, commiserating over the foibles of our children who are roughly the same age. And it was so good to connect with somebody who shared over a decade. We shared over a decade in D.C. together, and we both left roughly around the same time that we started our respective families, and we decided that D.C. is no place for anybody that wants to transmit traditional values to their kids. And here we are, different phase in our life, talking about the fun we had, the fun to come, and all the good things we hope our children will share together. But you know what really put me in a good mood this week? Leon Panetta. Who would have thought that the former CIA director and the former Defense Secretary who served with President Obama so closely would end up being the biggest whistleblower of the Obama years? He basically knocked the president out. He delivered an interview to Bill O'Reilly, which I can only describe as a knockout blow. We've seen over the course of the last few months, the president's approval ratings have dropped. In tandem with that, the mainstream media is showing signs of turning from him. Driblets. We had members of the administration coming forward, like James Clapper, blasting the president for saying that the intelligence had failed in being able to predict an ISIS advance. And now we see a key former member of the Obama administration, a person who is held in very, very high esteem amongst Democrats. In fact, his golden boys, a man known for his loyalty to Democratic leaders, and to Democratic causes. And he came forward to deliver a knockout blow against this president's foreign policy and also against his leadership style in general. Why is this interview so important? It is because we now have an inside glimpse into the Obama administration. We have an inside glimpse by somebody who is usually a Democratic partisan. And that inside glimpse confirms everything that folks like me and so many others on the right have been saying. So let's take this amazing interview piece by piece, especially the most shocking moments, the moments that confirmed just how arrogant and aloof President Obama is, how he fails to take good advice. Listen to what Leon Panetta says happened when the president was told by leading commanders and his national security team that he had to leave a residual force in Iraq. Otherwise, there might be problems for the region. Listen to this.
By not leaving U.S. troops in Iraq, President Obama committed a colossal blunder. Did he not?
There's no question that not maintaining a true presence in Iraq so that we could continue the momentum towards trying to secure that country and try to hope that it could govern itself in the right way, I think was a mistake.
All right. I say it was a colossal blunder, not just a mistake. A mistake is driving your rear view fender into the wall when you're parking your car. This is a colossal blunder that has led to the deaths of tens of thousands of people, because ISIS has now expanded throughout Syria and Iraq and is slaughtering, even today, slaughtering people. Now, the why of it. So you and a bunch of other people, Hillary Clinton, Secretary of State, went in and said, you know what, you got to keep some troops there. Did you pound the table like I would have, or were you diplomatic like you usually are?
Well, I think we made a very strong case that we had to maintain at least 10,000 troops.
And you looked him in the eye and
Absolutely.
you said, I, Leon Panetta, Secretary of Defense, and I'm assuming Mrs. Clinton did the same thing. I, Hillary Clinton, Secretary of State, and I'm assuming the CIA did the same thing.
Exactly.
All three of you looked Barack Obama in the eye, like I'm looking you in the eye right now, and said, you have to keep forces there. And he said, well, I don't.
Well, Bill, just to keep the record straight here, I think the president did support providing that $10,000, it's $10,000, 10,000 troop presence in Iraq, and supported CIA operations, supported the diplomatic operations that we wanted to continue. The real issue was, how hard did he fight?
How hard did he fight? He didn't fight. And you know what is the image that Leon Panetta paints of this man? Does he paint, such a grand, a mastermind wizard bent on destroying America? No, that's not the image we got from the portrait that Panetta so brilliantly painted. We get the image of a man who knows sometimes what should be done, who partially wants to do it, but doesn't have the stomach for the fight. And why ultimately does he cave? Why did he cave to Maliki, the former leader of Iraq, and withdraw all our troops? He didn't want to fight for American interests. He couldn't be bothered to fight. And why is he so quick to do what is contrary to U.S. national interests? It's because he puts a political agenda first, trying to save the Democratic reputation as the party of peace, the party that was going to bring all the troops home, the party that was going to create reconciliation amongst Iraq and America and the Muslim world and America. So this ideology came first, this political agenda came first, instead of the obvious facts, instead of the clear warnings given to him, not just by our military leaders, but by those who are paid to study this and advise the president, the defense secretary, and the secretary of state. He ignored them all because he thought he knew better. Well, another bombshell in this interview. We all know that within minutes of the attack on the Benghazi compound, there were cables fired to the State Department and to the White House that it was a terrorist attack. The leader of the Joint Chief of Staff and Leon Panetta were immediately briefed by those on the ground that this was a terrorist attack. And we know through leaks that Leon Panetta and the Joint Chiefs met the president and they had a conversation with him. And some of that has remained murky until now, when we know clearly in a crisp, lucid audio version of this meeting, Leon Panetta has confirmed that he told the president that America was being attacked by terrorists. Roll it.
All right. The other thing that I want to know about is Susan Rice going out telling the world 7 days after the attack that it was motivated by a spontaneous demonstration off an anti-Muslim video. We all know the story. We don't have to listen to the soundbite again. We all know it. All right. You, on the night of the attack, say you told President Obama you believed it was not a spontaneous attack, it was a terror attack. Is that correct?
General Dempsey and I were over talking to the president when we got word about what was happening. And what I told the president was that that there was an attack that was going on in Benghazi, and that we were concerned that that the consulate there was in trouble. And it was based on that the president then said, well, let's try to do everything we can to try to see what happens.
Did you use the word terror attack?
I used the word attack, that there was an attack by terrorists.
Oh, you said attack by terrorists. By terrorists.
Attack by terrorists, as clear as day. The president was told within half an hour of the compound being attacked that the attack was being conducted by terrorists. Terrorists who had firepower of a magnitude and range and capacity that simply does not appear when it's a spontaneous protest. So now we know that it wasn't just the hundreds of cables that were being fired from the ground to Washington that had this information, but it was also delivered verbally by the Defense Secretary. America was under attack by terrorists. In this interview, Panetta was asked, well, how did it happen then that the president came out with this hogwash baloney story about a YouTube clip and a spontaneous a protest? And Panetta goes on to say that, well, you know, he was relying on the talking points provided by the CIA. And we know that those talking points were tampered with by the politicos in the White House. So the president was told the truth, he knew the truth, and he deliberately decided to distort the truth. And remember that we know from a book that came out this summer called Blood Feud by a credible journalist who has discovered that Secretary Clinton told the president that she didn't want him to lie to the American people, that she didn't think it was going to work, that she thought it was going to be transparent. So they had a discussion about this. Also, in terms of strategy, what should they tell the American people? And again, the pattern of the administration, contrary to everybody's advice, the president decided to put politics first and to lie to the American people. Now, in this interview, I think that Leon Panetta was very brave in how much information he has given the American people, and he was very patriotic to defy his party's interests and put America first by telling us all the truth. And I applaud him for that. However, I was in Washington for too many years not to understand and see clearly what Panetta is doing. The interview was essentially his attempt to knock down Obama, but he wants to replace somebody as the new Democratic leader. He wants to replace him with somebody else, and that is with Hillary Clinton. And the interview, too, if you listen carefully, was almost his audition to be Secretary of State in her administration. So when he was asked point blank by O'Reilly, well, you know what? What about Hillary's role in all this? She was told that the compound needed more security, and she did not step up to the plate and provide that security. Doesn't she deserve some blame? And he tried his best to protect Hillary Clinton from any kind of criticism about what happened. He said if she had known that the compound needed more security, she would have done everything in her power to provide it. I am sorry, sir. She did know, and she didn't provide it. And you know what? The American people understand something very clearly. Even when she objected to the president's lie to the American people subsequently about what happened, she nonetheless supported his lie, and she continued to perpetrate that lie about the YouTube video and a spontaneous protest being primarily responsible for the attack on the compound. Let's have a flashback of what Hillary actually said. Roll it.
I also want to take a moment to address the video circulating on the internet that has led to these protests in a number of countries. Let me state very clearly, and I hope it is obvious, that the United States government had absolutely nothing to do with this video. We absolutely reject its content and message. America's commitment to religious tolerance goes back to the very beginning of our nation. And as you know, we are home to people of all religions, many of whom came to this country seeking the right to exercise their own religion, including, of course, millions of Muslims. And we have the greatest respect for people of faith. To us, to me personally, this video is disgusting and reprehensible.
So there you have it. The Secretary of State went along with the lie. Not only was she negligent in her failure to protect Chris Stevens and the others who died, but when push came to shove, she didn't stand up to the president publicly. She didn't out him as a real patriot would have done. Instead, she decided to protect his hide and try to protect her own. And I fault Leon Panetta for not telling the American people the full truth. He told us half the truth. Too cozy with Hillary Clinton to tell us the full truth. She is just as responsible as the president, and her behavior subsequently was just as reprehensible. You're listening to Dr. Grace, upholding values that never die.
This is American Heartland with Dr. Grace. This is American Heartland with Dr. Grace.
Welcome to American Heartland with Dr. Grace. Well, Hillary Clinton bungled her tenure as Secretary of State, and now she's come out with this interview where she says ISIS is more powerful than Al-Qaeda ever was. Quote unquote, it's a serious threat because this is the best funded, most professional expansionist jihadist military force that we have ever seen. End of quote. This is far more advanced and far richer than Al-Qaeda ever was. End of quote. She is trying to distance herself from the president. She has let it be known that she told him to arm the Syrian rebels when they were still a tiny force. And now she wants to wrap this ISIS disaster around the neck of the president and try to convince us that she would be a different kind of leader. Oh, yeah, sure. We believe you, Hillary. You know, the different kind of leader. The kind that, for example, puts her own self-interest above that of the country when it came time to telling us the truth about Benghazi. The kind of leader that can't even read the cables that are being sent to her when people are saying, help, help, help. You know what we have understood by all of this? There's not much difference between her and him. They're the same. They're the same garbage. They're the same politicos who care about their own self-interest before the truth, their own self-interest before the good of the country. They're the same kind of leaders who never take responsibility to the extent that they resign. That's what it means to take responsibility. If there's a colossal blunder, as O'Reilly said so rightly when he was discussing ISIS, but it was a colossal blunder too when our compound was attacked. When there is a colossal blunder and you say, I take full responsibility, that means you resign. But I take full responsibility doesn't mean I help the president lie, cover this up, and then I try to run for office later acting as though I'm a fantastic leader. That's not taking responsibility. That's not a person with a conscience. That's not a serious leader. And that's not a competent leader. Hillary Clinton is just as negligent and incompetent as Barack Obama. And I hope we hammer that point home from now until 2016 and beyond. We don't want to see the likes of her anywhere near a position of power and responsibility. Well, speaking about completely incompetent people who are way out of their depth, I've been calling for this woman to be fired for a while, and most vociferously last week. That moron, spokesperson at the State Department, Jen Psaki, she did it again this week. An incredibly embarrassing moment. She was asked point blank how well this airstrike campaign against ISIS is going. And she wanted to try to convince the press that, you know what, there have been significant victories. We've actually been able to roll back ISIS in key areas. And when she was asked specifically to say, well, give us some examples of these victories, this is what happened.
You said that the president had laid out a clear and comprehensive strategy for dealing with this. Is it not at all distressing to the administration that this clear and comprehensive strategy thus far has seen ISIL make gains rather than driving than retreat?
Well, in fact, I would disagree with that, Matt. Okay. There have been certainly gains made by the Iraqi security forces in Iraq. I can go through some of those for you if that would be useful. We've said from the beginning, and the president has said from the beginning, that this would be would not be overnight, that this would be a long-term effort. And certainly as I just outlined, there are some strategic objectives that we're focused on. We've gone after refineries. We're going after strategic locations. And let me just tick through these, and then we can go to your next question. Some of our successes we've seen on the ground by the Iraqi security forces. One moment. Sorry. Well, I'll find these. Okay. Sorry, I wanted to highlight them because that does not at all mean that, Matt. There have been the Iraqi security forces have pushed back and regained territory, and I just wanted to list through those, but I'll find them before we end the briefing.
Here's another person that I don't think even watches the news. According to the Washington Times, in the 2 months that these airstrikes have taken place, there have been no rollbacks. There have been no significant rollbacks. So Jen Psaki is totally uninformed. She's not reading the news. She's not watching the news. She doesn't know what she's talking about. She wouldn't have made such a lead sentence and then not have the evidence to follow it up if she knew what she was talking about. How embarrassing is that? That's almost like a Saturday Night Live comedy skit about an administration that's incompetent. Although you can't believe your eyes, it's not a comedy skit. It's real. That's our State Department spokeswoman who says, yeah, we've made the gains. And then for 30 or 40 agonizing seconds, I don't know how long that was. It felt like 10 minutes to me. 1:20, my producer just says in my ear. It felt like 10 or 20 minutes. I'm so embarrassed. I'm turning purple as I'm watching this. This is the face that we're putting out, not only to the nation, but to the world. The world is watching this. And our allies are watching this. And when we ask the question, how come our allies aren't doing more? Would you do more? If you're the head of another country right now, when you go, yeah, ISIS is a really big problem. We should invest more of our resources to help the Americans roll back ISIS. Just a second. Let me listen to what the State Department is saying. And then you see Jen Psaki? Does this convince you that, yes, you should go to your own people and face the criticism you're likely to get? For what? For these incompetents in Washington? Of course our allies are doing the bare minimum right now. Many of them are thinking, we need to help, we need to do this. But we don't want to do it with these folks in power. This is a joke. This is a comedy script. This is pathetic. And again, further proof, an incompetent man hires incompetent people. You know why? because he doesn't have good judgment. You know, last week we spoke about Valerie Jarrett, his key advisor. Another person with limited experience, limited knowledge of foreign affairs, no practical experience of politics. And Obama has allowed her to push out key advisors, but she's still there. Incompetent people surround themselves with other incompetent folks. And the incompetence around them disgusts everybody else who is competent. And it becomes a vicious cycle because the folks that have reputations to maintain, they leave. Axelrod left. Rahm Emanuel left. Leon Panetta left. The second term is full of folks who are incompetent, young, stupid, and incapable. And Obama is responsible for the people he has put around him. So you have a fool getting advice by fellow fools, and fools talking to the American people about all this foolishness. And you ask yourself, is it any wonder that in some key states, the president's poll numbers are at 30%, 31% approval, 32% approval, in key states where it looks like Republicans may be able to pick up Senate seats? The approval numbers are tanking. And to make matters worse, what happened this week? The Pentagon came out and said that Baghdad is now at risk of being taken over by the Islamic State. We're not just talking about just Fallujah or all the other cities that we have painfully watched collapse. We are talking about Baghdad. Baghdad may fall, is warning the Pentagon. They've also told us they are expecting the Syrian city of Kobani near the Turkish border. That is likely to fall. What does that tell us? Does it tell us that these airstrikes are working? These airstrikes are failing. And why? Because of what I said from the beginning when it was very unpopular to say it. It's not going to work unless you put in ground troops. Now, this is a test. Folks were saying, who didn't want American ground troops in the region, they were arguing, Kurdish troops are really, really good. Let's see what the Kurds do. The Pentagon is predicting that the Kurds may not be able to hold Kobani. Let's see what the vaunted Kurdish fighters will do. But it looks really worrisome. And remember, we were told that with this new plan, with Obama's military advisors embedded amongst the Iraqi troops, that the Iraqi troops were going to be able to do far better than they did before when they dropped their weapons and they ran. And now what are we facing? If that is truly the case, that about 1,500 or 1,600 American troops can put the steel in these Iraqi troops, we wouldn't be worried about Baghdad falling. But even that part of the strategy isn't working. It's falling apart at the seams. Biden said last week that the world is falling apart at the seams. You know what's falling apart at the seams? Every military maneuver that this president makes, because it's always half-baked. And what happened this week? He met with military leaders again and national security advisors, and they told him the obvious. They told him what they've been saying to the press. President Obama, you need more than airstrikes. You must do more. Otherwise, the rollbacks in Iraq will be even greater, and it'll take even more work, more resources, and more bloodshed to regain the territory that we're losing. And what did the nincompoop in chief say? we're going to stick to the current plan. The current plan that is failing, essentially. We're going to stick to the current plan. Why? Because he said again and again that there would be no combat troops in Iraq. Remember, that's the one red line that he drew. As ISIS was marching, he never drew a red line regarding a particular territory. You know, if ISIS takes over one more city, all hell will rain down upon them. No. You know the only red line he drew? The only foot in the sand that he put down? Was that American ground troops would not be sent. The exact opposite of what he should be saying. The exact opposite red line that he should have drawn. The nincompoop in chief did it again, ignoring the advice of military leaders, drawing red lines that he cannot uphold, and the result is the same: chaos and destruction all over the world, in particular in Iraq, where we have shed our sacred blood there. This is a travesty. You're listening to Dr. Grace, upholding values that never die.
I got God on my side. I'm just trying to survive.
The stories that matter, the issues that count. This is American Heartland with Dr. Grace. The stories that matter, the issues that count. This is American Heartland with Dr. Grace.
Welcome back to American Heartland. This is Dr. Grace, the editor of Politics and Culture at worldtribune.com. Well, Speaker Boehner has said we are not going to take the president's abuse of his executive authority. There is anger across the land at his inability to uphold the Constitution. And this anger is palpable everywhere, especially in recent polls that show that it looks like Republicans have a very, very, very good chance of taking over the Senate. And if they do, all issues really are on the table, including the possibility of impeachment. Well, here today to discuss what Congress is doing to stand up to the president is my special guest, Andrew Magione. He is Vice President of Government Relations for the Association of Mature American Citizens. He is also the host of a weekly radio program that focuses on fathers raising their sons to be men of God. The program, His Father's Apprentice, is broadcast on Louisville, on a radio station, WLCR AM 1040. So here today is Mr. Magione. Welcome to our broadcast, sir.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you. And you, I believe, are just as outraged as the rest of us at how the president does not appear to respect the laws in our country.
I have been to town hall meetings across the country with AMAC members, and and it's been consistent no matter what state I am in. People are outraged over this president's abuse of executive order, which some could charge could, in some cases, be a reflection of lawlessness.
Yes, and you especially have come out very strongly, as well as your organization, supporting the Speaker's lawsuit. What do you think is going to come of this lawsuit? Can you walk us through the process? How is it unfolding? Where are we now? And what do you think the end result will be?
Well, it's funny because our members are asking the same question of their members of Congress, again, all summer and through the fall. Where are we with this lawsuit? The lawsuit is proceeding. You know, the best analysis I could give is that it's moving forward, and the majority of Republicans in the House support it, and which is good. And it's right now, it's in the American judicial system, and those wheels turn slowly. People have asked, AMAC members have asked members of Congress, what do you think? And we're trying to get people to forecast and almost handicap what the results will be. And nobody has given us a straight answer. They are hopeful that they will be victorious and they can restrain the abuse of executive orders by this president. But it's anybody's guess. Right now, it is moving forward, and that's positive. It's just not going as fast as we all would like it to go.
Right. Do we have any knowledge now about the kind of time frame? Because, I mean, we know that legal proceedings can take sometimes a matter of years, and that would make this whole lawsuit a moot point. Because in 2 years, he'd be out of office anyways.
Yes, and that's a great point. They expect this to be resolved while the president is still in office, sometime during the new Congress, the 114th Congress, which begins in January.
All right, that's very encouraging. Now, how do your members feel about if, in the likelihood of a Senate majority victory for the Republicans? Do they also support moving forward with impeachment?
It all depends on the majority. And again, it depends on the number of Republicans that are elected into the Senate that actually form the majority, combined with an expansion of the majority in the House of Representatives. Now, the expansion of the Republican majority in the House should happen. It's anybody's guess as to what's going to happen with the Senate, although it does look good. The polling has been lights out for Republicans as of late, and we're in October, so we're a month away from this. So things are trending nicely for the Republicans. Our members have asked their members of Congress, what is the likelihood of impeachment should Republicans gain control of the Senate and expand the majority in the House? And of course, they sidestep the question. All this is going to be determined by sheer numbers. If Republicans have the same kind of numbers that President Obama had when he was elected in 2008 and sworn in 2009, when they had veto-proof majorities, you could see this happen. But I don't think that members of Congress think they're going to have those types of numbers where they could broach impeachment and be successful in actually impeaching this president.
Right, because even if they have control of the Senate, they would need at least two-thirds of the Senate to impeach the president. But you know what? That would mean that you'd have to have some Democrats who would go along with it. It depends, though, how badly he collapses in the midterms in terms of the wave of public opinion. There does seem to be a wave of public opinion now where this presidency is in free fall.
Not only is there a wave, but it's palpable, and it's showing up in Senate races across the country. It's showing up in polling, even polling done by the mainstream media. There is no question there is an anti-Obama sentiment that is sweeping this country and should sweep a Republican majority into the Senate. And after that happens, anything can happen in terms of what the agenda is going to look like. Do we take apart Obamacare in terms of, I don't know if you'll get a full repeal because the president still has to sign off on it, and it's unlikely that he would that he would throw out his signature legislation. However, Democrats in the minority, hopefully in the newly formed minority in the 114th Congress, could be singing a different tune, and some may be willing to cross the aisle to work with Republicans on key issues, including taking the teeth out of Obamacare.
Right. Now, what are the issues specifically that appeal or are of primary concern to the members of AMAC?
Well, initially, number one, these are probably the top two issues. The solvency of Social Security, it's going broke. We have a reform plan to save it. And it has been not in the spotlight here because healthcare has been, if you pardon the pun, has been sucking all the air out of Washington ever since Obamacare was passed. So healthcare is very important, but the signature issue for AMAC and our members, according to them, has been the solvency of Social Security. It's going broke. It's a promise that needs to be kept. It needs to be saved. The disability for Social Security is going to go broke first, and then this is closely followed by health care, and specifically Obamacare's effect on Medicare, Medicare Advantage, prescription drug plan, out-of-pocket expenses, co-payments, shrinking provider networks. So, we look to see hopefully a new Republican majority in the Senate and an expanded one in the House tackle health care and hopefully bring to the forefront saving Social Security because, the 2014 trustees report came out, and the longer they wait to fix Social Security, the more pain is going to be involved in resolving it, and all the good ideas that they have now to fix it and to save it are evaporating as more time elapses.
Right, and with Obamacare, it's going to drain more and more money from our Treasury. Those two things are intertwined. Our healthcare crisis and the Social Security crisis are intertwined if someone's looking at the budget, right? So you got to fix both, you might say, in order to solve this problem.
I think that's a very good analogy. You're looking at mandatory spending, and I mean it's out of control. The nation's in debt. Not only is Obamacare, for example, a drain on resources, but it's a job killer too. Walmart just put 30,000 part-time people into the healthcare exchanges. Now, people that support Obamacare are all excited about this, but this is not good news because these exchanges vary from state to state. And if you look at some states' exchange, the options that are available, there's 2 or 3. Some states only have one option. And people are forced onto these exchanges and have to take what the government is giving them. This is not good. So their choice has gone away, and you're going to see. I mean, today, I think more than a dozen states are giving their 60-day notice to people that hold non-compliant health insurance plans, and they will be forced onto the exchanges. So, I mean, you're going to be seeing, and there's 250,000 of these people in the state of Virginia alone. You're going to see more and more people affected by Obamacare as we run up to this election. Although the mainstream media is not talking about Obamacare, it will be technically on the ballot because it's one of the president's policies.
Right. And are your members really active in the midterm elections? Are they mobilized? Because one of the problems that we face, conservatives, is that we face a Democratic machine, which is light years in terms of organization compared to the conservatives and the Tea Party movement when it comes to getting the vote out.
You are absolutely right. By nature, AMAC members are active, engaged, and politically astute. They're politically involved. They're politically educated on the issues. We expect them. We've been meeting and talking with them all summer, and they can't wait to vote. They are mobilized. Make no mistake about it. They are eager to vote. They work polls. They will be driving fellow AMAC members as well as family members to the polls. They will be out there, and they'll be telling all their friends too. But you are right. The right side of the aisle has to learn. I mean, when there's a presidential election, the left already has 500,000 votes. Before people get up on election day to vote because of the early voting that they conduct in the drives. They are very astute at getting out the vote. But this midterm election, all the enthusiasm is on the right side of the aisle. It's shaping up to be a Republican wave. Now we'll see if that is reality. But all indicators are identical to what occurred in 2010 when the Republicans won the majority in the House of Representatives and took a couple of Senate seats as well.
And the president said very eloquently that he was shellacked. So we hope to give him another shellacking. Now, let me ask you, sir, your members, because these issues that affect the mature citizens of the United States, they affect them whether they're Hispanic, African American, white, black, purple, it doesn't matter. Are your members ethnically diverse, and do you see them, say those that are African American or Hispanic, are they equally as outraged, or do you see them, is there a divide in that regard?
No, not at all. AMAC members want their country back. They're outraged over the direction of the country. And again, I have attended over 20 town hall meetings in 20 different states since April. And the reaction from our membership has been identical, whether I'm in Pennsylvania or Florida or Alabama or Arizona, up in Washington State, in Texas. It does not make a difference. AMAC members, period, want their country back, and it transcends race, gender, ethnic diversity. Everybody is outraged. They want respect for the Constitution replaced, restored, and guarded. They want the abuse of executive powers reined in and stopped. They want their choices about a personal decision such as health care restored to themselves and not have a bureaucrat in the exam room along with their physician. So no, this does not. It's not as if we are fractured and different factions within AMAC have different concerns. AMAC members are united and they're patriots and they want their country back.
Well, that is indeed encouraging, and there is one thing that is a common denominator amongst all of us in this country. We will all age. We will all have to face those issues about Social Security, about whether or not we're solvent at that time, about what our health care will look like. And it looks like Obama has achieved unity, but in reverse of what he imagined. It's unity against him. Unity amongst ethnic factions in AMAC AMAC, as you say, regardless of their social differences, regardless of their ethnic differences, they are united in a fear for Social Security, in a fear for the status of our healthcare system, and in opposition to him.
Absolutely. I mean, look, they all recognize the historical figure that the president is. He seems like a nice enough guy, but they can't stand his policies, and they want them reversed. And they want more. They want the country they had prior to his election. They recognize that this president refuses to lead, and he's focused. He's a committed ideologue, and he's focused on remaking America in his, in his likeness, and he's committed to it. And he is letting things like foreign policy last as a result. He's letting America's standing across the globe diminish as a result of his mission on remaking America. He certainly brought us change when he said hope and change, but it was not the change that people had expected.
Right. Well, I hope that your members will be highly mobilized, highly energized to make a big difference in the midterm elections and give this president the shellacking that he so rightly deserves. Thank you so much for being on the show with us. Where can our listeners hear more?
They could learn more about AMAC by going to www.amac, that's AMAC.us, amac.us, or they could call toll-free 888-262-2006. That's 888-262-2006.
Well, thank you so much for being on our broadcast. And next time, we would like to hear a lot more about your specific mission in trying to bring about better fathers in this nation. So we hope to hear from you again. Thank you for being with us.
My pleasure.
This is American Heartland with Dr. Grace. The stories that matter, the issues that count. This is American Heartland with Dr. Grace.
Imagine all the people living for today. Imagine there's no country.
Welcome. This is Dr. Grace, and you all know John Lennon's famous song in which he essentially says that if there were no religions on the face of the earth, we would have peace, love, and understanding. The claim of atheists that religion is the problem. Well, there's one anti-religion advocate who is famous in America, Bill Maher. He is the atheist par excellence. And yet, lately, Bill Maher sounds like a paragon of common sense. Why? Because Bill Maher is standing up against the liberals on one key point. The Muslim faith is not like the other religions. Other religions, according to him, may have their flaws. They may have elements, according to him, of intolerance, but the Muslim faith is different. He has even called the Muslim faith a mafia faith that will, quote unquote, kill you if you disagree with them. Well, this week, again, Bill Maher made news because he had a debate with Ben Affleck regarding the nature of the Muslim faith. And the trendy liberal Ben Affleck accused Maher of painting all Muslims with one brush, of being racist in a sense, of propagating a stereotype. And yet, in numerous statements, not just in fighting and arguing against Ben Affleck, but in numerous subsequent statements, Bill Maher has pointed out some key elements of hypocrisy amongst the liberal left. Listen to this.
To count yourself as a liberal, you have to stand up for liberal principles, free speech, separation of church and state. Freedom to practice any religion or no religion without the threat of violence. Respect for minorities, including homosexuals. Equality for women. It amazes me how here in America we go nuts over the tiniest violations of these values, while gross atrocities are ignored across the world.
So, Bill Maher has... Don't you liberals understand the key tenets of liberalism? And why is it that you go insane when you perceive one of these tenets, say against women, being violated here in the U.S.? Remember when Rush Limbaugh used a derogatory term to refer to Sandra Fluck? Everybody was up in arms in this country. Liberals were saying how intolerant this is. And yet, when it comes to how women are treated in Muslim nations, the liberals are silent. These are the basic elements of hypocrisy that Bill Maher is pointing out. If we are liberals, he says, we need to uphold free speech. So in Muslim nations where it is okay to persecute somebody for a cartoon that is deemed offensive, this is not free speech. This is not freedom of expression. How can you be a liberal and not condemn that? And yet, liberals are loud at home and silent about the attacks on the liberal ethos when Muslims do it. Maher is pointing out these basic contradictions and elements of hypocrisy. I honestly never thought I would see the day where I would be agreeing with Bill Maher. But he's dead right. Furthermore, he goes on to say that if you are going to be truthful about the nature of the Muslim faith, you have to acknowledge that some elements of intolerance within it are not just upheld by a minority. That's what folks like Ben Affleck want to say, that there's just a minority of folks. Instead, Maher is saying that a majority of Muslims believe elements that are completely intolerant to others. Roll it.
Donald Sterling isn't allowed to own a team because he told his mistress not to post pictures with black guys. Okay, but if we're giving no quarter to intolerance, shouldn't we be starting with the mutilators and the honor killers? Or will that divert us from the real problem? That when Mel Gibson drinks, he calls women sugar.
Maher brilliantly is pointing out how in this country we lose ourselves embroiled in controversies that are small compared to the massive intolerance perpetrated against women and homosexuals and dissenters in Muslim nations. All this is brushed under the rug. Why? Why do liberals have such a blind spot when it comes to Muslim nations and how they treat others? Do they not starkly see the hypocrisy and contradiction that they are perpetrating? When Maher was debating Ben Affleck, he resorted to some key facts. Affleck kept trying to say these positions are minority positions. And yet it was Maher who kept citing a Pew Research poll which was conducted in the Middle East in 2010. 82% of Egyptian Muslims support stoning as a punishment for adultery. We're talking about 82% support throwing stones on a woman who commits adultery. 84% support the death penalty for leaving the Muslim religion. If that isn't intolerance, I don't know what is. In Pakistan, 82 and 76% support those two items that I just listed. And in Jordan, 70 and 86%. These numbers prove that the majority of people who adopt the Muslim faith adopt highly intolerant ideas that are embedded with violence against others. Islam is not like any other religion. The folks who uphold it are not like any other religion. and I applaud Bill Maher for stating the obvious. You're listening to Dr. Grace, again upholding values that are never going to die.
In an extraordinary place where the stars and stripes and the eagle flies.
This is American Heartland with Dr. Grace.